Is there trouble brewing in paradise? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to The Reefer, Jack the Reefer, and I got another banger video for you guys. But first off, like, comment, subscribe. Let's be special, baby. Let's be special. So fall camp's underway for the Tigers. Started last week, and they've had roughly a full week of practice, and the team's looking all right so far. One thing that is a kind of a big cause of concern for me is the fact that, once again, for the second year in a row, we are having issues keeping our wide receivers on the field. Because last Saturday, Frank Ladson and Joseph Ngata, two receivers with an extensive history of injuries at Clemson, both of them missed just about all of last season, and they also suffered some their freshman years, so both of them are juniors this year, suffered apparent injuries on Saturday. Now, they were back out practicing this week, which is a positive sign, but just the fact that they got injured concerns me already. In addition to that, you got Troy Stellato and Bo Collins, two freshmen, are both out in yellow/green jerseys this week, which means that they can go through drills, but they can't go full contact, not clear for contact. And then on top of that, we got Justyn Ross, who's out with COVID. And then I believe that Spectre is out with COVID or exposure too. That's Ross, Spectre, Stellato, Collins, Ngata, Ladson. That's 6 receivers that have already been hurt or are missing time with injuries. And we're a week into this thing. And that was a big issue for us last year too, if you ask me, is the fact that our receivers couldn't stay on the field. Trevor wasn't throwing to anybody over 6 feet tall. Now, that's not a knock on Amari Rogers or Cordell Powell. It's just, you go to our successful seasons most recently. I mean, when Trevor had T. Higgins, Justyn Ross, we won the national championship and then unfortunately lost to LSU in it, but we still got there. Before that, we had Mike Williams, who Deshaun Watson could throw to. You need tall receivers. In this age and game, you need a 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" receiver. You need someone in that range that can go up there and get that ball. You can't be running all slot receiver. They could prove me wrong. They could stay perfectly healthy this year, but Ladson and Ngata, I'm cautiously optimistic about their health, which, first off, these injuries are disappointing to me because I would have thought that the training staff and the weight room staff would have figured out a way whether they needed to add weight, take weight off, or do something just to keep this group of players healthy. Because we haven't had injury struggles like this in other position groups. Like, our defensive backs are good, linebackers good, D-line good, O-line good, quarterbacks good, running backs good. It's just, specifically our wide receivers have struggled to stay healthy on the field. Because I think this season will come down to wide receivers and offensive line. I'm not worried about quarterback, I'm not worried about running back. It's going to be our receiving group and our offensive line group that defines our offense this year. Now, I've been hearing a lot of good things about Juju. He's for those of you who aren't unfamiliar with him, he's a wide receiving prospect out of Canada. Didn't play a whole lot of football growing up, so he's kind of like a uncut diamond right now, is how the training staff's looking at him. He's like a diamond that they are in the process of cutting away to make perfect. And when I've watched film of him, he kind of seems like, go back to middle school. You knew some kid in middle school who was athletic but just grew a lot and couldn't control their body really, but they could do some amazing stuff every once in a while. That's what he reminds me of. He's got all the gifts you could want. He's big, he's 6'2", 220 pounds. Go up there and get the ball, but there's just times where he just seems a little lost, makes a mistake, or a little uncoordinated in terms of football movement. Now, also, his weight was an issue last year. He bloomed up to 240 pounds at the end of the season, which and you're 6'2", you can't be weighing 240 unless you're trying to go be a tight end. You just won't be able to keep up with the cornerbacks. The cornerbacks will just be quicker than you. But he's somebody to keep an eye on. I haven't really made up my mind about him, if he's just going to be like a project player or if he's going to be able to make an impact. I think that remains to be seen as the season develops. I mean, in the spring game, he looked pretty good, but I just keep hearing mixed things coming out of camp that, you know, he does some stuff great, and then he's got some stuff that makes you desire more. Now, he has been spending a lot of time after practice working with former receiver Artavius Scott. Yes, that Artavius Scott that won the national championship with Deshaun Watson. He's back coaching as a assistant coach for receivers at Clemson. He's been spending a lot of time with them trying to work on his route running, body control, and making the catch, which could pay dividends. It could work out. I mean, Tony Elliott said that Juju, his upside, DeAndre Hopkins. So if he can play with DeAndre Hopkins, that would be amazing. Good for him. But I don't think we're quite at that level, DeAndre Hopkins level yet. Now onto the O-line. So the O-line, they're trying to find the 5 best grown men to put out there in the trenches, which I agree with, because O-line did not look great last year at the points. Especially when we were at Notre Dame and playing Ohio State, they just got pushed around and it just wasn't great. So one guy that's really been a mover has been freshman Marcus Tate, who I thought looked great in the spring game. I talked about him back in my spring game video. And I'm happy to see that he's playing. He came in as a tackle, but apparently they're going to kind of try and move him inside guard just from an experience standpoint. I don't know if they have full trust in him to play tackle right now, but he could kick out there. It seems like this group of 5 offensive linemen may be a working project throughout the season. And hopefully they can hold it together through Georgia. We win that game, but then there may be some shuffling as the season goes on. One lineman that did kind of disappoint me a little bit. It's not really his fault, I guess. It's just something that I didn't expect. So we had 5-star Tristan Lay, offensive tackle from Virginia, enrolled this summer. And apparently he's just physically behind other linemen. Like Marcus Tate, another freshman, but who enrolled in January, is physically just ahead of where Tristan Lay is, which is a little disappointing. I expected a 5-star offensive tackle to come in kind of ready to play for an offensive line needy team where he could come in and make an instant impact. Maybe not as tackle, but, you know, guard, center, somewhere in there. And apparently he's just behind, but I think give him some time. He may be able to kind of work his way into that rotation and kind of sneakily steal a starting spot by the end of the season. But we'll see as we get into ACC play if they start moving linemen around. You know, obviously we're going to have some games we're going to win by a fair amount, so they'll be able to put a different group of linemen in and see how they perform, and there may be some shuffling in terms of who's starting and who's not. Now, running backs, seems like a 3-man race at running back from everything I've heard of camp so far, between Lynn-J Dixon, Kobe Pace, Will Shipley. I think it's more of a 2-man backfield. I like Kobe Pace, but the fact that the media and the coaches keep having to be like, well, don't forget about Kobe Pace, just kind of tells me that he's not at the limelight of practice nowadays with the running back group. He's a good running back, don't get me wrong. But it seems like the guys that are going to be the heavy lifters this year are going to be Lynn-J Dixon, who he's first or second all time in yards per carry in Clemson football history. So the dude deserves a shot. Lynn-J, and then it seems like Will Shipley is making big play after big play. So we could see him as a passing down running back and see what he does. I mean, he seems super explosive from what I could see. They're running him on punt return. So I think he's got a real potential to be special. But running back's one of those positions where there's so much talent at Clemson. The top end talent and the middle talent, I don't know how big of a gap there is right now in the talent levels. So it's one of those positions that I'm not overly concerned about whoever gets in there, I think is going to do very well for us. Now, quarterback, DJ's got that locked down. I'm a believer in DJ. I think he's going to be nice for us this year. But real test right off the bat against Georgia, September 4th. Georgia's got some nice defenders. They got some big fellas on that team, some grown men. And our offense is going to be put to the test real quick. All right, now defensively, Trent Simpson has been standing out, absolutely balling, which I made a video on him before. So, you know, I'm just a psychic. You can call me a psychic. So Trent's been balling out, and this seems like this is his year to shine. He was looking studly. I don't know if those of you that saw him at weigh-in, but he is looking like a grown man, and he is apparently playing like one at camp. Another player that's been standing out is 5-star Barrett Carter from Georgia. He was recruited as kind of a linebacker / safety, but they've been playing him a lot at the Sam and Mike linebacker positions in defense. And apparently he's going to be making plays, but Venables and then even offensive coordinator Tony Elliott was asked, who's one defensive player that stands out to you from camp? And he said Barrett Carter. Now, Carter, I watched some highlights on him. Explosive, quick, twitchy athlete. It reminds me a little bit of Isaiah Simmons, a little bit, just from the game tape I've seen. I mean, I haven't seen him play any college games. He's a freshman. But just the speed and the closing speed specifically he had on kind of running back checkdowns, he was just on them like that. So I think he can be a super explosive player. But the issue is Clemson has a logjam at linebacker right now because you got James Skalski, who's there for a 6th year, and James is a good player, but in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking about how the past 2 biggest games he's been kicked out of. He got kicked out against LSU for targeting, and he got kicked out against Ohio State for targeting. And that's just something where football IQ, we need the football IQ there. I know you want to hit him hard, but don't use your helmet. Just tackle, wrap him up, benefit the team. We don't want to lose our starting middle linebacker in the biggest game of the year for us. And then we got the Venables kid backing him up. Now, personally, I'd like to see Levante Bentley. I'm a big believer in Levante Bentley, and from what I've seen, game film and hearing about Barrett Carter and Levante Bentley need to get onto the field. And I think they'll be impact players for us at linebacker. D-line's looking nasty again. One of the more interesting battles in camp this year is who the starting defensive ends are going to be. So you got Xavier Thomas, who's back. He's trimmed back down to 265 pounds the weight he was freshman year. And he apparently is looking as explosive as he ever has. He looks like a man on a mission. I mean, he's going to practice, and then immediately after practice, he's hitting the weight room. So I think Xavier realized that he needs a big year if he wants to get to the NFL. That's just personally in my insight into it. He knows he needs a big year to get the attention of scouts, and the NFL has always been his goal. So that's what I think he's going so hard for. So you got Xavier Thomas, who I think could have a really great year. He was great year freshman year, pretty good year sophomore year, and last year was just a mess because he had COVID and then he had strep, and it just wasn't great. So his weight's back down. He's good. XT, big year. I'm high on him. You got also returning player KJ Henry, returning from a knee injury. Solid player. You got Justin Foster in there, which another good player. Then you got Miles Murphy, sophomore, coming in there. Now, of those 4 guys, I don't think Justin Foster is really gonna have a crack at it. I think it's more of a 3-man race between XT, KJ Henry, and Miles Murphy. Miles Murphy had such an explosive year, you gotta lock him in, so it's really Xavier Thomas and KJ Henry battling out for that last spot opposite Miles. Personally, I would pick, it depends how they look in practice. KJ Henry's been a very steady and foundational player for the Clemson defense for the past couple years, but Xavier Thomas has that wow factor, that explosiveness that we may need, and our defense was kind of lacking a little bit. I mean, Bryan's explosive, Miles was explosive, but we just needed that next guy to step up when teams were just keying on both of them and make a play, and I think XT can be that. And also, hopefully, Brett went back, watched the game film, learned from the Ohio State debacle about how there were times the defense wasn't set. Brett likes to call the play in last second after seeing how the offense sets up, and it just always doesn't work out very well. But he's had all offseason to analyze it, and I think that we may see some changes finally. But the defensive schemes are great. I think it's just the way that he's calling the plays in and audibles needs to be adjusted, which they could completely do. But we'll see against Georgia, because Georgia has an explosive offense. JT Daniels, and then they got Cook and Zamir White in the backfield. And then they got some stud tight ends, probably the best tight end group we're going to face all year, regardless who we play in the future. I mean, they got Arik Gilbert transferring in from LSU, who's a hybrid wide receiver tight end, absolute stud. I compare him kind of to a faster Jimmy Graham. He's just so big that you want to put him at tight end, but he just runs and catches the ball like a wide receiver. So he's a special guy. Georgia's got some special players, and our team's going to be tested real quick. I'll get to that more in a later video. This is just my kind of recap of camp so far this week for Clemson football. If you made it this far, comment below. Let me know what you want to hear in the future. Thanks for watching. Tell somebody you love them. Deuces.